Where is Madeleine McCann? Chapter 1. The year was 2007. Portugal's Algarve coast shimmered under the spring sun, its golden beaches and whitewashed villas promising the perfect family getaway. For the McCann family from Leicestershire, England, it would become the setting of every parent's worst nightmare. Madeleine Beth McCann was 3 years old when she vanished from apartment 5A at the Ocean Club Resort in Praia da Luz on May 3rd, 2007. Her disappearance would become one of the most heavily publicized missing person cases in modern history, spawning countless documentaries, books and theories that continue to captivate the world nearly 2 decades later. Kate and Gerry McCann, both accomplished medical professionals, had planned what should have been an idyllic vacation with their 3 young children. Madeleine, with her distinctive blonde hair, bright blue eyes, and a rare eye condition called coloboma that created a unique black mark in her right iris, was the eldest. The twins, Sean and Amélie, were just 2 years old. The Ocean Club sat nestled in the quiet fishing village of Praia da Luz, a place where crime was virtually non-existent and children played freely in the narrow cobblestone streets. It was the kind of destination where parents felt secure enough to let their guard down, where the most pressing concern was whether to order another glass of wine with dinner. But on that warm May evening, as the sun dipped below the Atlantic horizon and the resort's tapas restaurant filled with the gentle murmur of conversation, something went terribly wrong. In the space of an hour, a family's world would shatter and a little girl would vanish without a trace. The story of Madeleine McCann is not just about a missing child. It's about the fragility of safety, the power of media, and the lengths to which parents will go to find their lost daughter. As we delve into this case, we must ask ourselves, what really happened that night in apartment 5A? Chapter 2. The Origins. To understand the magnitude of what was lost that night in Praia da Luz, we must first understand who Madeleine McCann was and the family that loved her beyond measure. Kate Marie Healy was born in Liverpool in 1968, pursuing medicine at the University of Dundee, where her compassionate nature made her a natural fit for anesthetics. Gerald Patrick McCann, born in Glasgow the same year, specialized in cardiology after excelling in both athletics and academics. They met during medical training, their shared dedication to healing creating an immediate bond. Madeleine Beth McCann was born on May 12, 2003, at Glenfield Hospital in Leicester. From her earliest days, she displayed a personality that was both gentle and determined. Kate would later describe her as an exceptionally bright child who loved books, puzzles, and asking endless questions about the world around her. The McCann household was one of routine, love, and intellectual stimulation. Both parents worked demanding jobs at Leicester's hospitals, but they prioritized family time above all else. Madeleine was learning to read before her 4th birthday and showed an early aptitude for languages. When twins Sean and Amélie arrived in February 2005, Madeleine embraced her role as big sister with characteristic enthusiasm. Friends and family noted how protective she was of the babies, how she would sing to them when they cried and help with their care in small but meaningful ways. The McCann family represented the best of middle-class British values: hard work, education, family devotion, and community service. Their social circle consisted largely of other medical professionals, couples who shared similar values and life goals. The group that would accompany them to Portugal had been friends for years, their children growing up together. If you're finding this story as compelling as thousands of others have, make sure to hit that subscribe button now. The mystery only deepens from here. But beneath this picture of domestic bliss, the pressures of modern life were taking their toll. Both Kate and Gerry worked long hours in high-stress environments. The Portugal holiday was meant to be a respite, a chance to reconnect as a family and with their closest friends. None of them could have imagined that this peaceful getaway would become the setting for every parent's worst nightmare. Chapter 3. The First Signs. The days leading up to May 3rd, 2007, unfolded with the gentle rhythm of a perfect family holiday. The McCann family had arrived at the Ocean Club Resort on April 28th, settling into apartment 5A with the kind of relief that comes after months of anticipating a well-deserved break. Madeleine had adapted to the holiday routine with characteristic enthusiasm. She loved the children's club activities, where she would spend mornings painting, playing games, and making new friends. The resort's child care was excellent, staffed by trained professionals who noted Madeleine's bright personality and her natural leadership among the other children. But there were subtle signs that, in retrospect, would take on an ominous significance. On May 1st, Madeleine had asked her mother a question that would later haunt Kate McCann. "Why didn't you come when Sean and I cried last night?" Kate had been puzzled by this, as she hadn't heard any crying, and the baby monitor had remained silent throughout the night. On the evening of May 2nd, the McCann group had established what would become their routine for the week. The adults would put their children to bed in their respective apartments, then gather at the resort's tapas restaurant for dinner. The restaurant was located about 120 meters from the apartment block, close enough that they felt comfortable leaving the children sleeping while checking on them at regular intervals. This arrangement was not unusual for the group or for many families at the resort. The Ocean Club was designed to cater to families, and many parents followed similar routines, feeling secure in the resort's safe environment. But even as the adults enjoyed their dinner, there were signs that something was amiss in the quiet streets of Praia da Luz. Later investigations would reveal that several residents had noticed unfamiliar figures in the area, people who seemed to be watching the resort and its routines with unusual interest. A local resident reported seeing a man acting suspiciously near the Ocean Club on multiple occasions in the days leading up to May 3rd. The man appeared to be observing the comings and goings of families, particularly noting the evening routines of parents who left their children sleeping while dining nearby. The McCann family's daily routine had become predictable, observable to anyone paying attention. Morning activities at the children's club, afternoon rest time, evening dinner at the tapas restaurant with regular checks on the sleeping children. In a place where safety was assumed and vigilance was relaxed, this predictability would prove to be a fatal vulnerability. As May 3rd dawned bright and clear, none of the McCann family could have imagined that their lives were about to change forever. The signs were there, subtle and easily dismissed, but they were there nonetheless. Chapter 4. The Crime. May 3rd, 2007 began like any other day in paradise. The Portuguese sun cast its golden glow over Praia da Luz as the McCann family started what they believed would be another peaceful day of their holiday. Madeleine woke early, chattering excitedly about the day's planned activities at the children's club. By evening, the familiar routine resumed. The children were bathed and put to bed by 7:30 p.m. Madeleine had chosen her favorite pink pajamas, and Kate tucked her into bed with Cuddle Cat, her beloved stuffed animal. The little girl's last words to her mother were a request for a drink of water and a promise to be good while Mommy and Daddy had dinner. At 8:30 p.m., Kate and Jerry joined their friends at the tapas restaurant. The group had established their checking routine. Every 30 minutes, one of the adults would walk back to their apartment to ensure the children were sleeping safely. At 9:05 p.m., Jerry made his scheduled check. He entered apartment 5A through the unlocked patio door and found all 3 children sleeping peacefully. Madeleine lay on her side, her breathing steady and calm, exactly as Kate had left her. Returning to the restaurant, he reported that all was well. At 9:30 p.m., their friend Matthew Oldfield offered to check on the McCann children during his own check. He approached apartment 5A and listened at the door, hearing no sounds of distress. He could see the twins were still in their cots, but the angle didn't allow him a clear view of Madeleine's bed. Satisfied that all seemed quiet, he returned to the restaurant. At 10:02 p.m., Kate McCann rose from the dinner table to make her scheduled check. She approached the apartment with the casual confidence of a mother checking on her sleeping children, expecting to find them exactly as Jerry had left them an hour earlier. Kate entered through the unlocked patio door and immediately sensed that something was wrong. The children's bedroom door, which they always left slightly ajar, was now wide open. The twins were sleeping peacefully in their cots, but Madeleine's bed was empty. For a moment, Kate's mind refused to process what she was seeing. She checked behind the door, in the small wardrobe, under the bed. But a frantic search of the apartment revealed nothing. It was then that Kate noticed the bedroom window. The shutters, which had been closed and locked when they left for dinner, were now open. The window itself was also open, and the curtains were blowing gently in the evening breeze. Kate's scream shattered the peaceful evening air. "They've taken her! They've taken her! Madeleine's gone!" The crime was as simple as it was devastating. In the space of less than an hour, while her parents dined just meters away, 3-year-old Madeleine McCann had vanished without a trace from a locked apartment in a secure resort. Chapter 5. The Reaction. The piercing sound of Kate McCann's scream cut through the warm Portuguese evening like a blade, instantly transforming the peaceful resort atmosphere into one of frantic urgency. Within moments, the tapas restaurant erupted into chaos as the McCann's friends abandoned their dinner and raced toward apartment 5A. The resort staff were alerted immediately, and within minutes, Ocean Club employees were conducting a systematic search of the grounds. Pool areas, gardens, storage rooms, and every possible hiding place where a confused 3-year-old might have wandered were thoroughly examined. But as the search expanded and no trace of the little girl was found, the horrifying reality began to set in. This was not a case of a child wandering off. The open window, the unlocked shutters, and the complete absence of any sign of Madeleine pointed to something far more sinister. The Portuguese police were contacted at 10:15 p.m., just 15 minutes after Kate's discovery. However, the response was not what the distraught family had expected. The first officers to arrive seemed to treat the incident as a routine missing child case, despite the obvious signs of forced entry. News of Madeleine's disappearance spread through the small community of Praia da Luz with shocking speed. Local residents immediately joined the search efforts, the narrow streets of the fishing village filled with flashlight beams and calling voices as neighbors and strangers alike combed every possible location. As dawn broke on May 4th, the search had expanded to include police dogs, helicopters, and marine units. The Portuguese authorities had finally grasped the severity of the situation, but precious hours had been lost. The media attention began almost immediately. By the evening of May 4th, British newspapers were running headlines about the missing English girl. The combination of an attractive, middle-class family, a photogenic child, and the exotic location created a perfect storm of media interest. Kate and Jerry McCann found themselves thrust into an unwanted spotlight that would never dim. The small fishing village, unaccustomed to such attention, was overwhelmed by the media circus that quickly developed. Don't forget to hit that like button if you're finding this investigation as gripping as we are. The media frenzy that's about to unfold will change everything. Public reaction in both Portugal and the United Kingdom was swift and emotional. The image of Madeleine McCann appeared on front pages across Europe. The coloboma in her right eye became a crucial detail in identification efforts. The reaction from the Portuguese public was mixed. While many were sympathetic and eager to help, others questioned why the British parents had left their young children alone in the apartment. Cultural differences in parenting approaches became a source of tension that would persist throughout the investigation. As the hours turned into days, the initial shock began to give way to a more complex set of emotions. Hope battled with despair, determination with helplessness, and love with an anger that had no clear target. The world was watching, waiting, and wondering what had happened to Madeleine McCann. Chapter 6. The Investigation. The investigation into Madeleine McCann's disappearance would become one of the most complex and scrutinized missing person cases in modern history. From the beginning, it was marked by jurisdictional complications, cultural misunderstandings, and the relentless pressure of international media attention. The Portuguese Polícia Judiciária, led by Inspector Gonçalo Amaral, took control of the case. The initial forensic examination of apartment 5A revealed both crucial evidence and frustrating gaps. The open window and shutters clearly indicated forced entry, but the lack of fingerprints or DNA evidence from an intruder was puzzling. One of the most significant early leads came from witness testimony. Jane Tanner, one of the McCann's friends, reported seeing a man carrying a child near the apartment complex around 9:15 p.m. The man was walking away from the Ocean Club toward the beach, carrying what appeared to be a sleeping child in pink pajamas. Portuguese police began an extensive canvassing operation, interviewing resort staff, guests, and local residents. They discovered that several people had noticed suspicious activity in the days leading up to the disappearance. A charity collector had been going door to door, asking detailed questions about families and their routines. The investigation expanded to include analysis of phone records, CCTV footage, and extensive background checks on resort staff. Portuguese authorities also began coordinating with Interpol and British police to track down any known child predators who might have been in the area. One of the most controversial aspects was the use of cadaver dogs brought in from the United Kingdom. When the dogs showed interest in certain areas of apartment 5A and in a rental car later used by the McCann family, it raised disturbing questions. However, forensic testing of samples proved inconclusive. As the investigation progressed, attention began to focus on the McCann family themselves. The decision to leave 3 young children alone in an unlocked apartment became a focal point of criticism and suspicion. Portuguese investigators viewed it as negligent and potentially indicative of deeper problems. Inspector Amaral developed a theory that Madeleine had died accidentally in the apartment and that her parents had disposed of her body to avoid criminal charges. This theory would drive much of the Portuguese investigation and create a deep rift between the authorities and the McCann family. If you're as invested in this case as millions of others worldwide, make sure to subscribe to stay updated on every development. Media leaks from the Portuguese police created a parallel investigation in the court of public opinion. Details of evidence and police theories appeared regularly in newspapers, often without context. This made it increasingly difficult to conduct a thorough and objective investigation. By September 2007, Kate and Gerry McCann were formally declared arguidos, suspects, in their daughter's disappearance. Despite thousands of hours of police work and extensive forensic analysis, the fundamental questions remained unanswered. What had happened to Madeleine McCann, and where was she now? Chapter 7. The Julgamento. The formal designation of Kate and Gerry McCann as arguidos in September 2007 marked a dramatic turning point that would divide public opinion and transform the investigation into a legal battleground. The Portuguese authorities had reached the conclusion that the evidence pointed toward the parents' involvement in their daughter's disappearance. The evidence that led to the McCann's designation as suspects was largely circumstantial, but in the eyes of Portuguese investigators, compelling. The cadaver dog's alerts suggested the possible presence of human remains. Forensic tests had detected what might have been blood traces, though the samples were too degraded for definitive DNA analysis. Inspector Amaral's theory centered on the belief that Madeleine had died accidentally in the apartment, possibly from a fall or an overdose of sedative medication. He theorized that the parents had disposed of their daughter's body to avoid criminal prosecution. The formal questioning of Kate and Jerry McCann was intense and emotionally devastating. Kate faced aggressive interrogation techniques that pushed her to the breaking point. Portuguese investigators presented her with scenarios, asking her to confess to accidentally killing her daughter. The questions were brutal. Did you kill your daughter? Where did you hide the body? Kate's refusal to answer, exercising her legal right to remain silent, was interpreted by some as evidence of guilt. Her legal advisors had counseled silence, knowing that anything she said could be misinterpreted. Public opinion in both countries became sharply divided. In Portugal, many believed the police theory and viewed the McCanns as privileged foreigners expecting special treatment. The British public was largely sympathetic, viewing them as victims of an incompetent investigation. The media coverage reached fever pitch during this period. British tabloids ran competing narratives, some supporting the family, while others suggested their guilt. The constant attention made it virtually impossible for the family to grieve privately. The McCann's legal team mounted a vigorous defense, challenging both the evidence and investigation methods. They argued that the forensic evidence was inconclusive, that the cadaver dogs were unreliable, and that Portuguese police had focused on the parents to the exclusion of other possibilities. Make sure to share this story with others, fascinated by how international legal systems handle high-profile cases. The case highlighted the challenges of conducting a major investigation under intense media scrutiny. Every development was immediately reported and analyzed, often without proper context. The pressure on investigators to produce results was enormous, potentially leading to premature conclusions. As 2007 drew to a close, the investigation had consumed enormous resources and generated international controversy. But it had failed to answer the fundamental question: what had happened to Madeleine McCann? The legal proceedings had created more questions than answers, and the little girl remained missing. Chapter 8. A prisão et a réflexion. In July 2008, more than a year after Madeleine's disappearance, the Portuguese authorities made a decision that would fundamentally alter the case's trajectory. The investigation was officially archived, and the arguido status of Kate and Jerry McCann was lifted. After 14 months of intense scrutiny, Portuguese police admitted they had insufficient evidence to bring charges. For the McCann family, it represented partial vindication, clearing them of formal suspicion. However, it also meant that the official search for Madeleine was effectively ending, leaving them to continue their quest largely on their own. The archiving revealed the full scope of the investigation for the first time. Thousands of pages showed that Portuguese police had investigated over 600 potential leads and interviewed hundreds of witnesses, but had been unable to establish what had happened to Madeleine. The psychological toll on the McCann family was enormous. Kate struggled with depression and anxiety, haunted by guilt over leaving the children alone that night. She threw herself into search efforts with an intensity that worried friends and family. Jerry attempted to maintain some semblance of normal life, returning to his cardiology work while coordinating private investigation efforts. The twins, Sean and Amelie, were inevitably affected by the trauma that had consumed their family's life. The private investigation efforts led by the McCann family pursued several promising leads, not fully explored by Portuguese authorities. They hired former police officers and experienced investigators who brought fresh perspectives to the case. One particularly intriguing lead involved reports of a blonde girl matching Madeleine's description being seen in Morocco in the months following her disappearance. However, despite extensive investigation, these sightings could not be conclusively verified. During this period, both Kate and Jerry began speaking more openly about their experience. They gave interviews, participated in documentaries, and wrote books about their ordeal. These efforts served to keep Madeleine's case in the public eye and provide some sense of purpose. The couple also became advocates for missing children more broadly, working with organizations dedicated to child protection. This advocacy work provided them with a way to channel their pain into positive action. Remember to hit that subscribe button to stay updated on this ongoing investigation. The psychological analysis that follows will reveal disturbing insights. The international attention began to wane somewhat as years passed without major developments, but the McCann family refused to let Madeleine's disappearance fade from public consciousness. They continued to release age progression images and maintained a steady media presence. The period following the case's archiving was characterized by relief, frustration, and determination. While no longer under formal suspicion, they were also no longer receiving full police resources. They found themselves funding and coordinating their own search efforts while dealing with ongoing trauma. As years passed, the case evolved from an active investigation into something more complex, a symbol of parental love, a cautionary tale about child safety, and a mystery that continued to captivate public attention worldwide. Chapter 9. A mente do criminoso. To understand the disappearance of Madeleine McCann, we must delve into the darkest recesses of criminal psychology and examine the type of mind capable of such a calculated act. While the identity of Madeleine's abductor remains unknown, the nature of the crime provides crucial insights into the perpetrator's psychological profile. The planning evident in Madeleine's abduction indicates a perpetrator with sophisticated criminal thinking. The choice of target, timing, and method suggests someone who had conducted surveillance of the resort and the McCann family's routines. This level of preparation is characteristic of organized offenders who carefully select victims and plan crimes to minimize detection risk. The fact that the abductor chose to enter an occupied apartment while parents were nearby, rather than targeting a child alone in an isolated location, suggests several possible psychological motivations. Some criminal psychologists theorize that the perpetrator may have been motivated by the thrill and challenge of committing such a bold crime under difficult circumstances. Dr. Julian Boone, a forensic psychologist, has suggested that Madeleine's abductor likely possessed certain key characteristics: above-average intelligence, familiarity with the local area, and possibly experience with similar crimes. The ability to enter and exit without leaving significant forensic evidence suggests knowledge of police investigative techniques. The selection of Madeleine as a victim may not have been random. Her distinctive appearance, particularly her blonde hair and blue eyes, made her an attractive target for someone seeking a specific type of child. The coloboma may not have been visible to the perpetrator in the darkened apartment. Criminal profilers note that child abductors often fall into specific psychological categories. Some are opportunistic predators acting impulsively. Others are more methodical, planning carefully and selecting victims meeting specific criteria. The evidence suggests the latter type of offender. The psychological profile reveals disturbing insights into criminal thinking. Such an individual would need profound lack of empathy, ability to compartmentalize emotional impact, and narcissistic belief that their desires justify causing immense suffering to others. The international nature also suggests certain characteristics. Someone willing to potentially transport a child across borders would need resources, planning ability, and possibly connections to criminal networks. This points to a more sophisticated operation rather than a lone individual. The timing during peak tourist season suggests either supreme confidence or desperation that overrode normal criminal caution. This could indicate someone under pressure to deliver a specific victim, or someone whose psychological compulsions had reached a point where they were willing to take enormous risks. If you're finding this psychological analysis as fascinating as we are, don't forget to like this video and share it with others interested in criminal psychology. The ability to remove a sleeping child without waking the twins requires specific criminal skill and psychological makeup. It suggests someone comfortable with high-stress situations and capable of maintaining composure under pressure. These characteristics are often found in individuals with antisocial personality disorder or psychopathic traits. The geographical aspects provide psychological insights. Committing the abduction in a foreign country demonstrates strategic thinking and understanding of how jurisdictional issues could hamper law enforcement efforts. The fact that no ransom demand was ever made eliminates financial motivation and points to more disturbing psychological drivers. The perpetrator was likely motivated by personal gratification, whether sexual, emotional, or related to some other psychological need. Understanding the psychology behind such crimes is crucial, not only for solving individual cases, but for developing prevention strategies. The mind, capable of destroying a family's life, represents one of the darkest aspects of human psychology, a reminder that evil can lurk behind ordinary facades. Chapter 10. Conclusão misteriosa e reflexiva. 17 years have passed since that warm May evening when 3-year-old Madeleine McCann vanished from apartment 5A in Praia da Luz. 17 years of searching, investigating, hoping, and grieving. The case has evolved far beyond a simple missing person investigation into a cultural phenomenon that continues to haunt the collective consciousness of millions worldwide. In 2020, 13 years after Madeleine's disappearance, German authorities announced they had identified a new suspect, Christian Brückner, a convicted pedophile who had been living in the Algarve region at the time. Phone records placed him in the area on the night Madeleine vanished, and he had a history of breaking into holiday apartments and committing sexual offences against children. German prosecutor Hans Christian Wolters stated publicly that authorities believed Madeleine was dead and that they had evidence linking Brückner to her disappearance. However, as of 2024, no charges have been filed, and the case remains officially unsolved. Kate and Jerry McCann have never stopped searching for their daughter. They have aged visibly under the weight of their loss, yet they continue to speak publicly about Madeleine, pursue new leads, and maintain hope. Their twins, Sean and Amélie, are now young adults who have grown up in the shadow of their sister's disappearance. The case has raised profound questions about the nature of closure and the human capacity to live with uncertainty. How do you grieve for someone who may still be alive? How do you move forward when the most important question of your life remains unanswered? The investigation has become a study in the complexities of modern criminal justice, involving multiple countries, dozens of investigators, thousands of leads, and millions of pounds in resources. It has highlighted challenges of international cooperation and the impact of media attention on criminal investigations. The media coverage has been both blessing and curse. While keeping Madeleine's disappearance in the public eye, it has also created a circus atmosphere that may have hindered the investigation. The intense scrutiny has raised questions about the ethics of media coverage and the balance between public interest and personal privacy. The case has become a lightning rod for broader social anxieties about child safety, parenting practices, and dangers lurking in seemingly safe environments. The fact that Madeleine disappeared from a family resort while her parents dined nearby has sparked endless debates about parental responsibility. Perhaps most disturbing, the case has revealed the existence of a dark underworld of child exploitation operating across international borders with sophisticated networks. The investigation has uncovered evidence of organized criminal activity targeting children, a reality most people prefer not to contemplate. As we reflect on the mystery of Madeleine McCann, we are forced to confront uncomfortable truths about the world we live in. Evil exists, and it sometimes strikes the innocent with devastating precision. Justice is not always served, and answers are not always found. Yet the case also demonstrates the power of love, determination, and hope. The McCann family's refusal to give up, their continued advocacy for missing children, and their ability to find meaning in their suffering serve as a testament to human resilience. The question, "Where is Madeleine McCann?" may never be answered definitively. But perhaps the more important question is what we have learned from her disappearance and how we can use that knowledge to protect other children and support other families facing similar tragedies. In the end, the case is more than just a missing person investigation. It is a mirror that reflects our deepest fears, highest hopes, and most fundamental questions about good and evil. It challenges us to examine our own lives, choices, and capacity for both compassion and vigilance. The little girl who vanished from apartment 5A has become immortal in a way no child should ever have to be. Her story continues to unfold, her mystery continues to challenge us, and her memory continues to inspire efforts to protect other children. Somewhere in the world, the truth about what happened to Madeleine McCann exists. Someone knows what became of that bright, curious little girl who loved books and puzzles. Until that truth is revealed, her case will remain one of the most compelling and heartbreaking mysteries of our time. If this story has intrigued you, subscribe to the channel to discover other real crimes that shock the world and the minds behind them.